Yes. So this week, or actually the last couple of weeks, I took a trip back to the wild, wonderful world of Magalan in the follow up to Piranha Bytes 2017 RPG ELEX. What a surprise, called ELEX 2. So the question that I guess I had to answer for myself as part of this review was it worth putting Elder Ring on ice to play this game? Which I did. This game came out about 5 days after Elden Ring, so that is the reason why I have not played this game, and I've said that multiple times the last couple of weeks. So probably going to repeat a few things here in this as part of this review. But so for ELEX 2, for anyone that doesn't know, is an open world action RPG with a very heavy focus on narrative choice, factions, quests, exploration, and world building. It obviously has combat in it, but the big focus is on that world building and the narrative side of things. As for Piranha Bytes, so they're a German studio that was founded in 1997, and they've only ever worked on action RPGs, so the Gothic games, the Risen games. They're a small team, but they've got huge ambitions in their games. Sometimes some people may say they aim for too much and they don't deliver on all of it, but I never hold anything against someone that's got good ambition for what they want to do, especially as part of a video game. But for me, so my experience with Piranha Bytes games actually didn't start at the Gothic games. I still haven't played the first three Gothics. I played the fourth one, which is here, Arcania, but that's not made by Piranha Bytes. So that was not my first Piranha Bytes game. My first one was the Risen series. And this is a copy I had to import from the UK because Risen was banned in Australia, unfortunately. Refused classification. So very good game. Honestly, that's where this game, the very first Risen game, is what made me fall in love with what Piranha Bytes do. It's probably the second one's probably my favorite game in that trilogy, but there was just something magical about the way that they craft their worlds and craft their quests that honestly made me a lifelong fan. And I will now buy, unless they obviously do something horrible, I will probably buy any Piranha Bytes game on launch for full price because they're the kind of developer that I want to support. They're fairly, they're very small and everything, and it's like they're the ones that really need it. So, but as I said, it just had that special magic resonate with me. And after Resident 3, then they announced, okay, we're going to make this game series called ELEX, where it's a mix of like modern day, but with sci-fi as well as like fantasy elements. So it's kind of very, very mixed kind of setting, but it was intriguing to me. And I picked up ELEX on day one, but it didn't click with me right away. Honestly, it's a game that took me a while to enjoy, and it's a game that I didn't end up loving. I definitely didn't love as much as the Risen games. I saw the potential for it, and that's why when last year when they announced that they were working on ELEX 2, and it wasn't I think it was just after E3 that they announced ELEX 2, so not a long time between announcement and the release recently. I was very hopeful that they would obviously bring some of that magic back in that I felt was missing, and I'm very happy to reveal that I think they did it. I think they really this is a true sequel in many ways. I think they improved on everything, with one big exception, which I'll get to as part of the rest of the stuff.
Can I ask a question? You say they brought the magic back. Did they bring the tech back as well?
They brought the modern day back as well, Mike. They brought it all back.
Just checking.
No, but I think that just there was something about ELEX that just didn't click, as I said, click with me, and I think this game has that. So, but this game is definitely not for everyone. So, I'll get some of the reasons why towards the end. But in terms of the story of this game, it is one of the most important aspects. So I want to touch on it a bit. This is a direct sequel in every way. In terms of narrative, if you haven't played the first ELEX game, you're going to be so lost, especially at the start. Piranha Bytes assume that you know the events of the game. They assume you know the characters. They kind of do a mini recap at the start, but it's not the kind of recap that I'll expect new players to get everything they need out of it. And so it's basically you're dumped into the sequel, and it picks up. I think it's at least a few years after the events of the first game. So you play as Jax, the same character as the first game. He's a former commander of what's like an emotionless faction called the Albs. They were the villains of the first game. So you spent the whole first game kind of becoming more human as you know progress through the story, and this game picks up with you in isolation, frustrated that you save the world basically at the end of the first game, and then you learn that there's a threat of an alien invasion, and then apparently you go around telling everyone they don't believe you. It's like, motherfucker, I just saved the world and you don't believe me that aliens are coming. It's like, you bastards. And so he's living in isolation because people just aren't listening to him. And surprise, surprise, the aliens invade. So that's where this game picks up, as the aliens basically invade, and you're on a quest to basically unite all the factions of the people of Magalan to take on this alien threat. And they're like, literally, they've started taking over the world already. So now the aliens are called the Skyans, but what's really weird is they kept changing the name of these aliens not in the spoken dialogue, because every line is voiced in this game, but in the text sometimes it was Skyand and someone was like Skyanid. I'm like, what's going on? So someone forgot to like do the find and replace on all the text lines. So that's
so
something
awesome.
they can obviously easily patch out.
Yeah.
And this is
It's something you'd expect from a European studio, right?
Yeah, it's just like the main enemy name, you know, the main faction, the villain names. It's a bit weird. But anyway, it's a small thing. It was all honestly just gave me a bit of a laugh when I saw it. It's not a huge thing or anything. But what I like is that because you're super powerful at the end of ELEX 1, and every RPG, well, with some exceptions, will generally start you from 0. And this game does that as well. But they came up with a narrative way to explain why you're so weak now.
Is it a spoiler to tell us?
No, it's literally the opening cutscene.
Okay,
so
cool.
it's not a spoiler.
What is it?
So you basically get poisoned by these enemies. Not poisoned, but it's like they infect you, and then so you're left for dead basically, and you get rescued, and you're so weak, and you need to be like regain all your powers and stuff. And it's like, it's ridiculous, but it kind of works. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, fair play. They explained why you're basically level 1 now. You know, so.
I kind of wish sometimes games would just go, look, let's be real. This is a video game. We're not going to talk about this again. You know, this is a Metroidvania. Yes, Samus has no powers again. Okay, we're not going to have some bullshit excuse. Let's move on. We won't talk about this again. And then just move on.
The only plot point I'll kind of talk about, other than that, is you had a child with one of the other party members from ELEX 1, and the child's called Dex, which I thought was funny because it's like, he's Jax, but Dex. You're in an RPG, the word Dex means you literally have an attribute that is dexterity, and your kid is called Dex. So it's pretty funny. But I talked about factions. So factions are such an important part of this game. It was in the first one, but this one I feel probably even more. They not only play a huge part in the side content of the game, but also the main quest of the game. So it's all about winning the trust from the people. And so you basically, there's 5 different factions in the game you can join, and you can only join one of them, but there is some weird stuff that happens. But they've each got their own massive amount of quests. So they've got their own hub area, and there's a lot of quests that you do to be able to join them, and then a lot afterwards as well. So you're not going to be able to play through all the faction quests unless you do some manual saves and stuff. But what I like is there's some factions. So for instance, you got the clerics. They're like the techno-religious freaks who worship an aborted rocket that was meant to save the world before the comet crash, whatever, right? There's some cool ideas and stuff, but they were super powerful in the first game, and they've kind of lost. They've been taken down a peg. They're like living in ruins now.
They get poisoned by
they did, yeah, they
aliens?
get poisoned. But basically, to gain their trust to be able to join their faction, you have to join their rival faction as a sleeper agent and play through all their quests. And then at a certain key point, you actually have to you can actually betray them. And I really like
cool.
that.
Yeah,
I really like this.
Cool.
Isn't just they did some really cool stuff with that. But also, when you join a faction, it unlocks a skill tree specific to that faction. So I joined the Berserkers, and that gave me access to some of their cool spell abilities and things.
On top of your normal skill tree that I guess every character has?
So it's I'll explain how you level up and stuff in a second. But yeah, there's a trainer that is part of the Berserkers that taught me all those new abilities. But you have to join them first, and as you level up ranks in the faction, you unlock new stuff you can do as well. But I talk about quests, and I mentioned a bit of this last 2 weeks. But I'm revealing it, so I might as well cover some of it now. That this is why I love Piranha Bytes, the way they do their quests and the way they design their quests. And there's so many cool quests in this game. There's some that are just literally fetch quests, but when you've got a game that has like hundreds of quests, you know, you're gonna get that. But the way that they weave these quests together, so for instance, they'll make one quest without you knowing, trigger progression in another quest without you knowing it, and you're like, oh, that's why I couldn't do that thing, because it was relying on this thing to be done first, and it all makes sense. And at no point are you like, I don't understand what's happening here. It's kind of, it all links together really, really well. But what I love is that you hear NPCs talking about the like outcomes and consequences of the quests you do. So, for instance, and again, like this is not really spoilers, it's just talking about some quests. Like there was a quest where I stole a valuable logbook from one of the faction leaders, right? And I came back to talk to him, and he was talking to his guards about, hey, my logbook got stolen. You guys have to go and find this in the town, in the city. And I should actually follow the guards, and they're talking to all the different people about we have to find this and still, and that's not a quest. It's just they've added this flavor text of characters that go off and do stuff. Not every quest does this, but
yeah, still, that's awesome.
The care that they put into that stuff. Another one, so I took on a mission from an underground leader of the outlaw faction, which is like the scoundrels, thieves, and stuff. And it was I can't remember if it was a main quest, but it was a pretty important quest, and I completed. And hours later, I was walking through a town, and I had someone approach me, and they're like, thanks, man, you took this guy out. He was like causing my life so many issues, blah, blah, blah. And he like gave me these rewards and things just randomly. Not randomly, as in like it's not part of the quest. The quest is finished. Then hours after that, I was walking through some broken down like wooden structure, and a trader calls out to me, and he's like, hey, dude, come over here. I went over there, and he's like, that dude was my paycheck, like, and you killed him. Like, what did you arsehole? And then he attacks me. He attacks me. And that, again, that's not a quest. It's just the outcomes.
That's awesome.
I just love that stuff. And that's the kind of magic of this game, is just the way they do their quests. But unfortunate thing with the quests, though, is the main campaign's pretty good until you get to the last, say, third. Then what they generally do, because at that point you're amassing power, you've connected all the factions together, and now you're having to take it to these aliens. They start chucking lots of missions that are just go here and kill 30 aliens, or go here and sometimes I got a mission where it's like kill 30 enemies, and they chucked 3 of them at me at once in 3 different locations. So all it is just going and fighting enemies, and it's like, look, narratively it makes sense, but they keep doing it, and it just feels like I don't know if it's padding or they ran out of ideas, but it just feels like, because there's no other quests in the game that are that extreme in terms of go and take out this many enemies all the time, and it's just so many close together. So that wasn't great, but look, it's a black mark on an otherwise really good campaign. So I'm not going to kind of get to that, complain too much about that. But I talked about the world. So this world, the map is based on the same world as ELEX 1, but they shift the map over a bit. So
shift
as in like literally, if you think of like a Grand Theft Auto map, assume there's not an island, or let's say it's a Grand Theft Auto map, then you shift it across like half, like I don't know, like all the way over, so half it's crossing over half.
So you still experience some of the original world, but then it's a whole different
exactly.
Okay,
but
cool.
Also, at the same time, there's like they redesigned it, so it's not exactly the same. It honestly feels like an entirely new map, which is great because otherwise it's not like they're reusing it. But they do have some major locations. For instance, there's a massive location called the Fort, and in the first game, it was controlled by the Outlaws, and it was like a deserty area. And then it got taken over between the games by the Berserkers, who are like these tree-loving people that grow plants and stuff like that. They basically terraform the world back with grass and plants and stuff.
That's cool.
And so they've taken over the fort, so it looks like a lush green place now. So it's really good in terms of world building. But the charm of this game outside the quest is just exploring. It's just, okay, I haven't checked this corner of the map. I'm just going to go down there and you'll find secret items, like 100%. Like there's something everywhere that hidden in every place. You'll find a random quest and things like that. And I'm not saying that's unique to this game, but it's part of that's just the fun of it. Like this is almost like a looting game, a loot RPG, where you're just walking around finding stuff. And sure, I don't need all those coffee mugs, but I've got unlimited inventory space, so I'm going to pick up bloody everything. So, but yeah, and it's got a cool hub area that you go back to and all your party members and stuff. But
Can I say that still to this day shits me the most about Skyrim because I just collect everything and then I'm like so heavy I can't even move. I'm like, shit, I have to go drop these cups and plates that I've picked up for no reason.
That's why you get a mule. I'm sorry. That's why you get a follower to come with you.
Yeah, mine died and never came back.
Ah, Lydia, damn it.
Yeah, I don't know
So,
if that's
yeah.
an accident or not.
Unlimited inventory space, which sometimes feels ridiculous and immersion breaking, but who cares? It means I can loot to my heart's
It's a
delight.
video game. Get over
So,
it, people.
One of the I got to talk about the bad stuff now.
I imagine someone tuning into this ELEX 2 review. It's like, now the bad stuff, like however minutes in, like, shit, this game's great. It's 20 minutes in, there's no bad stuff yet.
The combat in this game is not good. Pre-release, much hype was given to the fact that they're improving the combat from the first game. I never thought the combat in the first game was great. I never thought the combat in the Risen games wasn't that bad as well. This somehow even feels worse. I know it's not technically worse, but something about it, especially in the first like 15, 20 minutes. Honestly, this has one of the worst starts to any game I've played, and it will put so many people off from a gameplay standpoint, but also just really awkward cutscene transitions and everything. But the combat just feels wonky, like all the time. It does get better as you level your character up and get abilities, and it's basically combat split between like range combat and melee combat, and then later on, as I mentioned, spells and things like that. But basically, for most of the game, you're probably going to be using either ranged or melee, and ranged feels alright, feels pretty good. I like it. Melee feels like shit a lot of the time. And so it's unfortunate that you've got other European RPG developers like Spiders improving game to game. I really think that, because there will be an ELEX 3 unless the company goes out of business because they set it up in this one, and they seem to do like their trilogies. I think they really, really need to get someone to have a much better go at the combat in the third game. But they did add aerial combat in this, which I think is a cool addition, because you have a jetpack in this game. I forgot to mention
That's
that.
cool.
And jetpack ranged combat is great because when you unlock the ability, you can hover in the spots. So I can fly up, hover, and then just rain down shotgun fire on the bastards below. But you can actually use melee in the air as well, and that feels just awkward. That never felt right.
That's so hard to fine tune. Jetpack, melee combat.
I'm not saying it was an easy job for that one, but it almost felt like they overreached on that one. I think
Sticking to their theme.
Yeah, but look, it's a shame that part of that's gameplay, right? It's a shame that feels so off at times because this game has so much else to offer. But look, I'll touch on a couple of other things before we wrap up. I love the RPG systems in this in terms of the way you build your character. It's nothing new, and I think it's fairly the same as ELEX 1, maybe tweaked. But basically, you level up, you get attribute points, and you get skill points. So you've got 5 attributes, but those determine what equipment you can equip. Like, you need X amount of strength or whatever. But it also indicates what skills you can learn. So you need 20 intelligence or 50 cunning to be able to learn this skill, but you just don't unlock it yourself. You actually have to find trainers in the world, and then you give them money as well as use the skill points to be able to learn those abilities. But the cool thing is, once you've met them, you can mark the ability you want, and it will highlight all the trainers in the world and you can just go to them. So it's fine. I actually like it. Cool. It's got a narrative hook on how you build your character. I'm actually learning how to lockpick something from an actual thief, so but yeah, so I quite like the way that they do all that side of the systems. Presentation wise, this game looks much nicer than ELEX 1, but it's not going to wow people. The character models can look rough at times. They're not horrible, but this is not a AAA game, so temper your expectations in regards to that. The world
actually looks pretty good to me, by the way.
The world looks nice. Yeah, the world looks pretty nice, and especially when you're flying over by jetpack and stuff. Music-wise, it's pretty forgettable for me, sound effect-wise as well. But the voice acting's not bad. Especially the main character is really good. They recast him from the first game. I think you're going to hear his voice a lot in this game, so I think they got that right, thank God. But in terms of performance, this game is pretty spotty. It's can get a little rough. It's not horrible. It basically hovers between 30 to 60. I'm sure it's probably somewhere in between as an average.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying it's like there's times when it definitely feels 30 and there's times when it definitely feels 60.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it makes sense now. It's
I don't
very,
think
very
Digital
relevant.
Foundry's doing a special on ELEX
I'd
too.
love to
So
see it.
I'm sure there's someone's done it. I'd say
Let's
if
do
you,
Let's do it.
I honestly I got used to it, but it is very inconsistent. So if I would assume that PC is much better with that. So it's probably the platform to play on it in terms of technical performance, definitely.
Just from a grunt at it.
A couple of last things before I wrap up. The character arcs and interactions are generally great, but there is a huge issue with the game, and I can't explain it because it's a huge spoiler.
Okay.
But it leaves you with this scratching your head and just wondering, did they completely forget to finish this part of it? Because it's like such a major plot point and it impacts two major characters in the game, and they don't talk about it to each other, like massively. Like you're like everyone else I've seen talking about this game that have completed it, like, wait, what the hell happened? They didn't even talk about this. And the difficulty, it's a pretty tough game. I actually had to ramp the difficulty down as I went. The enemies feel like HP sponges, especially at the start of the game. So I think some people might feel that it's a bit unforgiving in that regard. Not in like a Dark Souls way, just in a way of this combat's
takes
really
too long.
rough, and I'm sitting here hitting an enemy for like a minute. So that's
Stupid ant.
yeah. But look, overall, to wrap up, if you can't tell, I do love this game. I think it's fantastic. It's honestly, I played the first 3 Gothic games. It's my favorite game they've made, Piranha Bytes, and I look forward to going back to those early 3 because especially Gothic 2 is the one that people always talk about, even though they're obviously pretty old now. This game's definitely not going to win any awards, and I think that scores that you see in the 60 to 70s are pretty fair and pretty like it's a game that is very flawed.
That's
but-
what I wanted to ask. This Metacritic 74. Do you feel like that's fair or?
Oh, that's definitely fair.
Okay.
Decent
I
enough
think
score.
that so, but to me, like I said, this won't win any awards, but because there's no awards like best quest design or best world map junk looting simulator, they're the kind of things that make this game really fun to play, but they don't never show up on
Yeah.
your end of year lists and stuff.
Well, they should this year.
Yes, maybe. So
Yeah,
look,
that'll be our game of the year.
Oh, yeah, I can't really.
it's
Best.
it's a shame. It's a shame that games like this go missed. Honestly, even though it's not for everyone, because people often can't look under the surface or they can't forgive the jank of a game when there's so much else that it has to present to people.
I appreciate my girlfriend. She looks beyond this ugly mug.
I thought you were saying it the other way for a second.
I thought the exact same. The way you framed that made me think you were talking about my girlfriend's like Elix too.
The other way.
This also has probably the best reward I've ever gotten for completing a game before, ever.
Okay.
Like
boner?
I might explain it after. I don't want to spoil it for people who
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to this already.
What was it?
It's worth completing the main quest for this alone. Trust me.
Really? I
yeah, it
somehow
is.
doubt that.
Oh no, this reward is amazing.
Okay.
So look, the very final thing I'll say is Elden Ring and Starfield better impress me because currently this game is
I don't
sitting
know,
at the
man.
top of my list. But
Calm
I also
down.
haven't played.
After hearing this
No
review,
joke. This is an
Tough to
awesome game. I loved it.
But you're saying 74 is fair. That makes no sense to me. Do you think Elden Ring's going to be
Fair,
74?
no, I'd say fair for the general public.
Okay,
Not-
you
not for me.
understand it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it. For you,
So-
this is a what? A 95.
I'd say this is probably a 90 or so for me.
Okay.
But look, who would I recommend this game to? If your favorite part of Mass Effect was exploring the Citadel and completing like quests in a large hub area and just spending hours just doing quests that may just be dialogue, this game would probably be a good fit because that is what you're doing in this game. This is also a game for patient RPG fans because ones that favor like those branching storylines and stuff over polished gameplay or like fluid combat. So I'd say the
Or
patient
storylines
RPG
that are finished. Or...
well, that was one exception.
Enemy
It was a
names
big,
that
it was
are
a big one,
consistent.
unfortunately. It was a big one.
Fair
But this, yeah, look, I'd say this is a patient RPG gamer's game.
Okay.
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 Which you definitely are. So.
Interesting. I'm now fascinated by the end of the year with our Game of the Year voting or however we do it. You might put
There
this
is
number one.
there is no way in hell I could ever convince you guys to choose Helix 2 over Elden
Well,
Ring.
No, but you might
the
vote at
end of
number
the
one.
year.
You might vote at number one. It might be
I
rank
don't-
3.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know. I
might.
don't know.
And I will play.
Starfield's
Can I borrow
coming
your
out this year.
copy? If I can borrow your copy, I'll give it a crack.
Only if you beat Helix 1 first.
That to me is a bizarre decision that
Might
they've
take a
made
while.
it so it's not easy for anyone to just jump into it. Like that's
Not-
so
it's
weird.
Not at all.
Like Horizon, I know that's a AAA game. They've got stacks of QA time, playtest time. They've got like a whole introduction to the game to get you up to speed, so you don't feel in the dark at all because it's a direct continuation as well, right? But that does feel like a bit of a minimum to do.
If anyone's still listening to this and haven't played the game yet, I would recommend if there's any videos, I don't know if they exist, that summarize the storyline of the first
There probably
game.
would be, yeah.
I would 100%
True. And you can
recommend
make
that
one.
before you play this. So.
I definitely do that for some games. Like I'll just to make sure I'm catching up or like understand what the hell is going on, the context. Sometimes I find like them to be useful for games I've actually played. I'm like, oh, now I get like some of the story that went over my head. So
Or like game of some other EU games.
pretty much, yeah. I need to just watch a Chrono Trigger playthrough. Speaking of which,